Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming and taking time out of your busy days and maybe your precious lunch hour to come and listen to me talk to you for the next hour or so. Um, First of all, if you don't know me, my name is Pippa. I've spent about 15 years now working in product and technology roles. I've worked for really big companies like British Gas, eBay Classifieds Group, and Charlotte Tilbury. And I've also worked for small to mid-sized companies like TES, Comparison Tech, and Aptem. Some of those you may never have heard of. I absolutely love behavioral psychology and EQ, so emotionally intelligent centered leadership. I get a real kick out of translating the theory of product management into reality and helping others tackle what we often call imposter syndrome when it comes to product management. So let's get stuck in as to what you will hopefully take away from this session. Well, firstly, I want to help you define success on your own terms. I want to help you develop good product practice with a bit by bit approach. And I also want to give you some people tips to help you and your continued growth through through your product management careers. I'm just going to have a quick tweak here because then my setup is stopping me from clicking on some stuff. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So last year, I was really lucky to be asked to speak at a product conference called Mind the Product. If you haven't heard of it and you haven't had an opportunity to go, I really recommend you go check it out. When I was asked to do it, I immediately had that thought of, oh, what would I possibly have to say for myself? I'm not good enough. No one's going to want to hear what I have to say. And it reminded me of that feeling that I had said to myself throughout my career, which is you're not a proper product manager. And I suddenly sort of twigs that this is something we all struggle with. This is the sprawling nature of the role and the different environments in which we have to navigate product management, sort of can eke out this feeling that we're not doing it properly. And as I grew in my product management career, I got into leadership, and then I heard members of my team complain that we as an organization weren't doing proper product management. And I think the thing that I really reflected on most at this time was, what is proper product management? Does it really exist? And is that what we should be striving for? Because regardless of whether the environment allowed me to do proper product management, or we as an organization are what anyone might call product led, we were still doing some really great work. We were still doing some things really, really well. And we might not be doing all the things really well, but we were doing some things really well. And then that was sort of emanating out and creating some really lovely cultures in our teams, in our functions, across an organization. And it got me thinking about, how can we take those learnings and use that to navigate our careers, both if you are managing a team, but actually if you're managing yourself. And I developed what I now call pockets of brilliance, which is really thinking about creating these small pockets or bubbles in a, like I say, in a team or a function or an organization where we do some things really well. Because your career is going to span such a long time, sadly, that really you want to sort of build up bit by bit of all these brilliant experiences. And in the talk I did last year, I described it like a patchwork quilt, that every bit of your experience adds up over time. So the place you're in today, you might get one little scrap that might not feel like it's particularly brilliant. But actually, when you add it together and it adds up over time with all the other bits of experience you have, it all adds to the strength and beauty of your overall career fabric. So what makes up a pocket of brilliance? So for me, when I was reflecting on my experiences and what I'd seen work really well, is a combination of values, or what I call product values, capabilities. So these are the hard skills of product, people skills, because sadly, it doesn't matter how many books you read and how many courses you go on, to actually effectively make change and do product, you're going to have to work with a lot of people to be successful. So really, how do we work with others? And then really look at those things over the context that you are in today. And what do I mean by context? Well, you might work in a startup where you might run out of runway soon. And so working in a very generous, opportunity-led way might be difficult, because actually you just need to do what a potential client wants in order to get that next contract, in order to extend that runway. So things like that might be difficult. You might also work in a really big organization where there's loads of interdependencies or tech debt or something, which slows you down and means you can't work in a sort of rapid experimental way, perhaps. But that doesn't mean there isn't great work you can do or great things you can build. Values here, I will go into it in more detail, but I want to sort of make it clear. Values here are really our guide in how we do things regardless of our context. So curiosity, and I go into this in more detail, curiosity, you can still be curious regardless of the context you're in. And we'll go into that shortly. And so what I want to do today is really help you think about where you would like to develop a pocket of brilliance. Where would you like to give yourself a sort of almost a product-like approach to your own personal development? So the first thing I need you to do is really start thinking about your context. I would describe myself as an ambitious person. But I've often asked people this question, are you ambitious? And lots of people say, oh no, I'm not ambitious. Well, actually, let's take a step back and think about what ambition really means. Ambition is a drive and a determination to succeed. And success is purely subjective. You choose what success is. So the first question I would like you to start thinking about, and you can jot this down, is what is success for me? So success for you is likely to be success, a different type of success to what I've chosen to be successful, because my environment, my context, my interests, my values will be different to yours. And when I talk about success, yes, there's the sort of non-negotiables of how much you need to earn to still be able to pay your rent or your mortgage or whatever it might be. It's the, do I want to commute? Do I want to be full-time in the office? Do I want to be part-time? Do I want to be remote? All those sort of the practicalities of what you need. And then there's the more value-driven stuff around what is most important to me in my life. It might be that you are, in my case, I'm a parent, I've got a 6-year-old, and so I need to make sure that I can pick her up and get her home and do her tea and homework and whatever. I've got that element of responsibility. So I need to make sure that that works for me. Whatever success for me will be balancing home and work. Success for me is also to do with helping others realize their potential, I suppose. So what is success for me? The next question is, what is success for me in my context? So what I mean by that is in your context today. So if success for you is, actually, I want to become a CPO, I want to become a chief product officer in a medium-sized organization, that will be success for me, because that will mean I satisfy my leadership desires. It also means that I'm still very much involved in what that product how that product evolves. that might be the big aim, that might be the big success. But in your context today, you might still be a product manager or a senior product manager, or not yet got into product. And so if you're thinking realistically, am I realistically going to get to CPO in this organization? There's that question. Am I do I even want to get to CPO? Do they have a CPO in this context? Other things that might get in the way are people. So thinking about the management structure. So I've put a note down here that says, think of factors that impact your ability to achieve your definition of success. So who influences that? And I don't mean just that you might have a horrible manager who would stop your promotion and wouldn't let you go anywhere. I don't just mean like that, but also they could impact it positively. So you might have really good mentor or coach or manager or friends in that area. So think about all the people who can impact your success. What could get in the way? If you're caring either as a parent or for a parent or for someone else, there's probably practicalities that are involved around how much time you can give, as how you're gonna achieve that. So it might be the particular definition of success for you might include some sort of qualification. You might not be in a position to pay for a qualification right now. So one of these things is going to have to be, I need to think about how I'm going to save enough money to do this, etc., etc., etc. In that context, to just give an example, I've spoken quite recently, since going freelance myself, to other people about how to get into that space. And I knew that I would never be able to take a risk like that unless I had a couple of months of bills in the bank to give me that confidence. So again, it's sort of thinking through all the practicalities of these things. So that's context. Now we move on to capabilities. Now I hope no one's going to sort of panic when they see this, in case they don't know what it is, don't know any of the words. Don't worry about that. This is a capabilities matrix that I like to use by a guy called Neil Cabbage, and I've put the link down there so you can go, and he's got a nice article written about how he likes to use it and all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to talk to you about how I like to use it. So there are other things that might be missing from this. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think it's a good start. What I get my teams and people I coach to do when they're looking at their development plan is, first of all, take this matrix and heat map it. So they color code those boxes from red to blue on things they feel really, really confident in, and then maybe actually they don't know anything about. So I'm just going to flick onto the heat map key so you can get a sense of what that might be. So red would be, I'm so confident in this, I would happily stand up on stage at a product tank or a meetup or whatever and talk about this and teach this to others. Amber is around, I feel good about it, I've done it, I feel confident in myself, but I wouldn't want to teach it. I've done it enough times, but I think there are nuances here that I could probably learn some more on. Yellow is, okay, I've done it once or twice, not sure if it was right. Green, I know the theory, which is great because there's loads of stuff out there. And blue is, I actually don't know anything about this. So if I go back to this again, this matrix is also split in terms of sort of more external facing, so customer market facing, to internal business facing, more strategic at the top and more tactical at the bottom. So it might be, if you're either considering making a move into product management, or you have just made a move into product management, if you had a background like I had, which was one in project management, you might already be quite comfortable in that bottom right-hand space where, or business cases or business analysis, backlog grooming, systems analysis, all this sort of space. This might feel really confident to you. If you've come from a marketing background, the top left-hand corner is probably going to be, you're going to be like, oh no, I feel like got a bit of knowledge here. And what you're really looking at doing when we're thinking about this pocket of brilliance, rather than panicking that your whole matrix isn't yellow, orange, or red, is actually to think, what's the next one I want to do? Where could I actually build my next bit of capability? And that might be just wanting to increase from a yellow to a red, or it could actually just going from a blue to starting something new. So what I want you to do now is, while you're having a look at this, just pick one and jot it down on a piece of paper and have a think of, oh, actually, I'd quite like to get better at that, or I'd like to learn a bit about that. So just keep a capability in mind. I also want to just point out for other people who are interested, Petra Ville has another self-assessment tool called the PM Wheel. She's also written a great book called, I think it's called Good Product People. I think that's right. Forgive me if it's wrong. It's just another way of cutting the capabilities up. So she looks at understanding the problem, find a solution, doing some planning, getting it done, listening and learning, team, grow, and agile. And the link is in there as well. So I'm not focusing on this, but I'm also really keen that people shouldn't just settle on one thing and have a look at what works for them. So that's just an alternative you can use. If you're sitting there having a look at that matrix and panicking, thinking, I actually don't know any of this, that this whole matrix would be blue to me, and that makes me feel a bit rubbish or a bit sad or nervous, what I'd recommend is start from where you are today. So what are you doing today? Write down the skills that are involved in your role. How does that break up? What capabilities do you use? And then look for the nearest neighbour. So if you, I'm going to stick with project management because it's something I know of. So if you're in project management and you're not even working in an agile environment, and so you don't have like a backlog as such that you're grooming, or you don't work in Scrum or whatever it might be, you are still getting requirements. You're still trying to understand a problem that you're trying to solve. So there are things you can look at there to then go, okay, well, there are elements of product management here, but I just need to sort of make a bit of a stretch. If you don't know what those nearest neighbours are, that's a great opportunity to go and seek out product people that may already be in your organisation, or you might know in your network, where you could say, I've got these skills, I know these capabilities, but could you help me translate that into what that might be for a product manager? If you're still thinking, actually, my role is so irrelevant today, and I just want to get into product management because I find it really interesting, then I'd recommend you look at your life experiences. In the talk I did last year, I highlighted parallels between choreographing a dance for a university musical and product management. I also use the example of planning my wedding as when I felt like I was product managing something, because I had an outcome in mind. I wanted to create an experience for the people who were attending. I wanted to make them feel loved and involved in something. And then I went through a series of steps to sort of achieve that. So it could be a wedding, it could be, I don't know, running a local sports team, whatever it might be. There are going to be skills in there that you can lean on that will be transferable. Okay, so if you think back to that capability you've chosen, ask yourself, do you want to learn it, practice it, or master it? Now, we're not talking about mastery today, but you want to understand where your starting point is, because your steps might be slightly different. Then ask yourself, how much time do I want or can I dedicate to this per week? And this is where we have to be careful with our time and set boundaries. I have lost count of the number of PMs I've worked with, and I include myself in this, who have said, I'm going to make sure that I spend half an hour every day looking at dashboards, reading content that's out there in the market, and just being really on top of my data and market research. And then I talk to them again in 2 weeks' time, and they go, I haven't looked at anything because I haven't had the time. So think realistically about when you can do some of this learning, and maybe block it in your calendar. Think about, in the same way we thought about those successes and what might get in the way of your success, what might get in the way of learning a capability here? Again, is that time? Is that the organization? What things might be at play? Is it currently being done in your organization? So is this something you can learn from, or are you trying to actually introduce the practice? Now, don't be put off if it's not already being done in your organization. In my experience, being actually able to introduce a capability into a team or an organization is a fantastic experience, firstly from the experience itself of learning, and then from your own point of view of sort of telling your story and your CV and that sort of thing. Really, really good. And then how might my context limit me? So again, if your organization is strapped for cash and you're wanting to really push in on the data side of things, and they can't afford a data tool, that might be difficult, but there still may be other things that you can do. Is there someone you can learn from that you know? And who else might find this interesting? And the reason I asked this last question is because introducing change into anywhere can be difficult. It is even harder if you're trying to do it on your own. So getting other people involved, do two things. Firstly, it is someone to work with that you can learn with together. Secondly, the message spreads, it gains buy-in and visibility of what you're doing and really helps. So if you're looking at, actually, we don't talk to any customers, and the thing I've chosen is actually customer interviews, then how can you start getting in front of the customer and getting other people interested and sort of building up some momentum here around this capability that not only you want to learn, but you want to introduce to the organization? And then in terms of how you actually do that introducing into the organization and learning for yourself, it's this bit by bit cycle I talk about, which is really the key to the pocket of brilliance. It's not trying to do all the things, it's taking a product iterative approach to your own development. So step one is really self-serve. What do I mean by self-serve? Well, that's if you're learning this for the first time, then that is going and reading the content that is available online, in books, in podcasts, wherever it may be. There's tons of stuff available. Say, continuing on the customer interview example, Teresa Torres is the goddess of a continuous discovery. Go have a look at her work, listen to some talks, understand what she's trying to teach, and then try and practice that before going and talking to someone else. So again, customer interviews are a really nice example. You've read about how to do customer interviews, then you have a little go yourself. So you might go to your friends and family and interview on how they use a particular product. If what you'll learn from that experience is, oh, I realized actually keeping myself quiet in those situations can be quite tough, or I find myself into leading questions, whatever it might be. That's the point. You should go and seek some help and go to someone who knows it and is good at it, because you're going to be able to ask them good quality questions. They're giving up their time to help you. Make sure you've done your homework and you're sort of respecting that time that they've given up. The next is really collaborate. So you've got an idea that you want to introduce customer interviews into your organization. You want to bring in that voice of the customer more. Who can you get involved? Who can get involved in that? If you're already in a product team, great. Hopefully the rest of your product colleagues will want to get involved in this as well. But don't be limited in just by product or tech. Think about who currently is really close to speaking to the customer. You might have a customer success team or customer services or whatever they might be called, who are talking to the customer all the time, and they might have really good access to customers being interested. Sales teams are great. In one organization, we had a really highly engaged finance director who loved getting involved in stuff like this. And again, that bigger spread of who can be interested and get involved in this learning really means better visibility of the things you're doing and the great work you're doing. Work with those people to give it a go, and then review what you've done. Review with a learning mindset. So don't go into this thinking you have to get it all right. You're going to get it wrong. Sometimes it's going to feel like a waste of time. Sometimes you're going to get real nuggets of gold. Review it and look at your learnings, and then share regardless of how it's gone. What I have done in many places is lunch and learns or little impromptu meetups, online, in person, wherever it might be, to share what you've done and the learnings, and people can just come along with their coffee or their lunch and listen. And again, it's sort of building this momentum, because then somebody might say, oh, that's interesting, I'd like to get involved too. And you're kind of picking up people as you go, and then go back and repeat it all again. It's an iterative cycle. You're never going to nail it first time. If you want to bring change into an organization, if you want to grow in your own development, you're going to have to keep on keeping on. So now I'm going to move on to those values I talked about at the moment. I touched on curiosity. And when I say curiosity, it's really sort of understanding the why behind the things we do. Curiosity to make sure that you're looking at the strategy, looking at the market, understanding the customer, all those things. So curiosity. Learning. So learning over knowing, or learning over being right. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning with Amy Edmondson, who is basically the person who coined the phrase psychological safety. She talks about how actually learning is the key to psychological safety, because we're not naturally in learning mode. We kind of grow out of it as we leave school. So we need to place ourselves back in that uncomfortable place of not knowing, of not having to be right and not being defensive. So that learning piece is really important. Creativity, and I don't just mean sort of creativity to design stuff, but creativity and looking for solutions, looking for different options. With product management, when we are building something, when we are developing a product, we actually never know if it's going to work or not until we've got it into customers' hands. All we can do is build confidence through our experimentation to the point it's sort of released into the wild. So having a creative mindset will really, really help give you lots of options. And then the last one is collaboration, which I've talked about a fair bit, but it is really bringing people with you, building momentum, and it just makes it more enjoyable as well. So still keeping that capability that we spoke about in mind, I want to share with you a worksheet I've put together. It's sort of bastardized from a number of different things I've learnt along the way, from leadership courses to a values worksheet that I read from Brene Brown's work, to weekly check-ins that I've taken from a guy called Dave Martin's work, and really try to bring it all together. So on the left-hand side, I've listed out those values. You might have value of your own you want to sort of tap into. The next column is about the belief we have, or you have, around that value. So how does this value help your product practice? So let's take curiosity. The example I've put here is, I believe that if I stay curious, I will avoid jumping to conclusions and get closer to the problem. The next column is around positive behaviors. What behaviors demonstrate this value? So if I was just observing you, watching you work, how would I know that you are a curious person? So one I've put in here is you might just always ask why that one more time. You might stay quiet during meetings and actually only speak up at the end because you're in that listening mode before you formulate the questions you want to ask. And then the next column is, what are the negative behaviors? So we all have this, and this isn't for anyone to sort of feel, oh, what are you saying? I'm not good at this, but it's what behavior undermines this value. And we all do these things. We all have values and we all have positive behaviors, and we counter them with sort of these slippery behaviors that kind of can sometimes get us into trouble. So negative behaviors here would be passive listening, interrupting, or finishing somebody else's sentence for them. That could impact, that could be a negative behavior that impacts curiosity. And this is where we want to align those values and those behaviors with that capability that you want to learn. So how will I use this value to enhance my capabilities? So if we're using customer interviews as an example, I will practice my curiosity behaviors when talking to customers in my weekly interviews. The next column is really to hold yourself accountable and check in and almost do like a mini retro for your personal development. I've put weekly here. I know there are some people who are really good at being diligent about sort of sticking to these sort of timelines. I think once you've almost done the exercise of thinking about those positive behaviors and negative behaviors, you will hopefully become a bit more self-aware. But I think it's good at the beginning to use this to say, okay, what did I learn? Here I've put an example. I learned I need to remove distractions when interviewing. Next time I will, and give yourself an action. So next time I will turn my phone off. I will make sure I'm in a really quiet space, whatever it might be. I've done another example there on learning. You can, if you want to just screenshot this slide, you can. I think the slides are also going to be sent out separately, but hopefully you get the idea. You work through, think about how those values can align with those capabilities. And again, why do we do this? Well, because your context might be different. So your capability alignment might be different. What you can do, so if you're wanting to practice curiosity and you've got a different capability, you might also be thinking, oh, what's going to be doable in my organization? Because the values piece is that guide, which means it doesn't actually matter if you're doing customer interviews every week. You can still practice curiosity in your day-to-day. Okay, the last section, let's see how I'm doing for time. I'll try and get through this so we've got time for Q&A. Is around people. So, said at the beginning, you can't do this job without knowing how to work with people. It doesn't work. And in the panel chat we had the other week, there are a lot of questions around networking, about sort of progressing, which will come back to how you work with people. And so I've just picked a couple here to talk about. There's so much more we could talk about, but I also only have an hour. So I've picked 3 that I hope will help you. The first one is build a network. The second is build trust. And the third is build emotional intelligence. So let's dive into network. First of all, networking isn't just going out to a conference or a meetup and adding people on LinkedIn and following people on Twitter. It's actually building relationships inside your organization that will inevitably lead to outside your organization. I have been very lucky in my career that I have built those relationships inside, and they continue to pay off throughout the rest of my career. So people I worked with 10 years ago, I've had opportunities to work with again. They've gone and worked at different companies, I've gone and worked at different companies, and we found a way back together. So firstly, recognize you've got to, you can build your network from the inside. But don't just do it in a sort of mercenary way. You're looking really for meaningful connection. Now, if you're thinking about those capabilities and how you're wanting to build that capability, you might just start by going to the sales team and asking if you can take someone out for coffee so that you can understand things that customers are saying to them. That might be the starting point. But actually, it's spending time with them that you can understand who they are, what drives them, how do they get into what they're doing. Start really taking an interest in the person, because you'll then start building that meaningful connection. And that helps build this pocket of brilliance. When I think about, particularly when I worked at Comparison Tech, we created such a lovely culture across that team. We all took an interest in what we were doing, what in and outside of work, how it all built up from there. It was lovely. So try and look for meaning, connection, and then lastly, pay it forward. You might not think you have anything to pay forward at this moment. You might think, oh well, I'm not really connected to anyone, or I don't know anything, but you do. You had a life experience. There might be someone who's fresh out of school looking for some guidance of how to get their first job. You can make yourself available and pay these things forward. So that's what I'd say around building your network. Secondly, building trust. So big part of building psychological safety, building those relationships is around trust. In the talk I did last year, I referenced some of Charles Feltman's work, which I recommend you go and look at. But in recent conversations I've had with some of my coaching people, there's been a bit of a theme around working with people who perhaps you don't naturally get on with, which can damage the working relationship, so that people become defensive or awkward or get other people involved. And what I would say is, if you find you're in these sort of slightly more frictionful relationships, check yourself and check the story you're telling yourself about this relationship. So why do you think this is? And then start over from a place of curiosity. And if you don't know someone, you can also start from a place of curiosity. What makes them tick? Ask them about themselves. What's brought them to this point in their life? Where do they see themselves going? What are they interested in? And then really, through that curiosity, lean into empathy. So we talk about empathy a lot with customers, but also we need empathy with the people we work with, because everybody has their own values, their own set of values and history that they are bringing with them. And no one typically comes to work to do a bad job. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, they're rubbish, they're not trying to be rubbish. I'm sure they've got a different take. So lean into that empathy. Also, in terms of building trust, I would say do what you say you're going to do. So reliability is really key to that building trust, and that will also build into that networking. If someone feels that they can trust you in terms of doing what you say you're going to do, then that really helps. And then lastly, building emotional intelligence. So this quadrant is the simplified version of Dan Goldman's emotional intelligence work. What we mean by emotional intelligence is around the self and others, and then awareness and sort of regulation, sort of management. So if we start in the top left, start with self-awareness. Start thinking about, be slightly more self-aware about the feelings you bring in into work, into what you're doing. When I talked about learning, a kind of negative behavior of learning is being defensive. So again, I've been guilty of this in the past, and I've seen it in others, where you might be challenged by your stakeholders in a meeting and you immediately get defensive because you want to stick up for the thing you're doing, and that defensiveness actually doesn't help you. It doesn't help you learn, doesn't help you grow, it doesn't help the conversation in the room. Whereas self-awareness is thinking, oh, I'm feeling like I want to be defensive. Actually, I'm going to switch into curiosity mode and actually ask questions to understand more. So there's loads more self-awareness. There's loads more to all these boxes, but I'm also really keen to get to the Q&A. So self-awareness, and that goes into self-management. So how do you regulate? So that piece I just talked about feeling defensive and then adjusting it. It's like regulating how you feel in those emotions and those feelings, what you bring to work, self-management. And then there's social awareness. So when you're sitting in a meeting room and you are aware someone else is defensive, or you're aware there's difficult relationships at play, it's tuning into them and then also being understanding how you might need to change your communication style to reach someone. And then that relationship management piece is then that again sort of how are you regulating those relationships. And this is where the really tricky stuff comes in, which is things like really difficult conversations. If we want to make really impactful change at work, we are going to come across challenge and obstacles and resistance, and that will be led by people. So we need to learn how to have those conversations that feel deeply awkward in order to make sure that we can grow. Innovation doesn't happen without taking risks. Risks don't happen if people don't feel safe to take risks, which means we've got to learn how to create these environments, have these difficult conversations. Like I said, there is tons more to say about emotional intelligence, but I'm going to leave that there. So just to summarize then, values, using our values to really guide us. Capabilities, so looking at all those things, and there's probably more things out there, but not feeling overwhelmed by them. Instead, picking off one thing at a time, bit by bit, going through and sort of building that strength, building that muscle memory. Understanding people and how people tick, and doing that work around building relationships and trust and building our networks. And then looking at how this context we're in affects all those things. What do we have to be aware about? Where do we have to actually allow for reality? So appreciate our context, use our values as our guide, apply capabilities flexibly, and work with people bonded by trust. So that's me. For now, I can see there's a few questions in the Q&A. So let's have a quick look where we got to. I'm going to start at the bottom. I should have said you can upvote, which a couple of people have done, but I'll get stuck in. So I am a product owner myself, but I want to step up and manage a team of product owners. How do I identify my leadership style, and how can I make sure that I'm growing along with the team, along with growing the team members? So identifying your leadership style for me would always come back to your personal values. So who are you? What do you care about? Where are the themes of your values? How have they shown up over your life? So in coaching, I ask everyone to start by telling me their life story, basically. In telling your life story, you can look at what these sort of key milestones are in your life, or what themes bubble up as you're telling it. So what's important to you? And then really ask yourself questions of, when do you work at your best? What's the kind of environment you like working in? What do you what do you respect and like in other people? And do the work to sort of narrow these values down. And then that can really help inform your behaviors and how you want to be as a leader, because that will help you be an authentic leader and really take you in that direction where it feels good. And when it feels good, people will probably support you and want to be involved in that. In terms of growing alongside your team members, you've got to make time. You've always got to make time for your own reading and development. And it never stops. There's always more stuff to learn. you think an introvert can be a successful product manager? Absolutely. One of my favorite people is one of the most introverted people you could ever hope to meet. It's about, if we think about being an introvert, it just means you manage it differently. You can be an introvert and still be very successful as a PM. You might have to overcome certain things if your introvertness leads into other behaviors. So for instance, if you are terrified of public speaking, that is something you will have to work on, because product managers have to stand up and talk about their products. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Don't let that put you off. I've seen loads of people who are introverts who make excellent PMs. You've worked in very diverse industries. How did you transition successfully across them, and how did you make up for the knowledge gap to start building relevant products? So how did I transition successfully? The lovely thing about product management is the capabilities you apply wherever you are. So you always want to ask, what problem are we solving? Where's the customer value here? What's the business strategy? How does the product strategy relate to this? So those sorts of core questions, kind of doesn't matter about the industry. You then have to just get good at whatever industry you land in, learning as quickly as possible. So that's, again, if we go back to that inside out thing I talked about from a networking point of view, spend the first couple of weeks taking as many people out for teas, coffees, lunches as you possibly can to extract as much knowledge as you can. Go sit with your customer service teams, go and sit with your sales teams, absorb as much as you possibly can about this, read whatever market research there is. There might be white papers, there might be market reports that are done that can just really help you upskill fast. I hope that answers that question. Given the breadth of product manager skills, are there specific archetypes who you would identify to consider if aiming at a new product? I'm not sure I understand this question. Hang on a sec. Given the breadth of a product manager skills, are there specific archetypes you would identify to consider if aiming at a new product related job, which you might call on a wide range of these capabilities? I'm really sorry, I'm not quite sure what that question is, but if you could kind of boil that down and write it again, I might be able to come back to it. Do you have any suggestions for communities I could become part of to network better within product management? There's loads. The sort of go-to one, product tanks, because they're pretty much everywhere. So they're in lots of different cities. They're also global, so you can go to them in Dubai and South America and all over Europe and all this kind of stuff, if you're lucky to be in those sorts of places. And they're free. For women, there's a women in product one. So sorry to the chaps out there, but this is focused at sort of really bringing women into it. That's a lovely one. There are other ones I'm not sure, but I go on Meetup and search for product, and there'll be tons. There's loads of tech ones. There's hundreds of things you can get involved in. I would just get on LinkedIn and meet up and have a look. I'm trying to transition into product management. Depending on if I can get an associate role or a PM role, what might you recommend as the best learnings I can get out of those experiences to grow the fastest, transitioning a little bit from data analysis and business analysis in the public sector? Okay, so when you're transitioning into product management, I don't think there's one size fits all, because as I said before, your background and experience is different for everyone. So, and I said this in the last webinar, actually, for those of you who are on that, which is being in a learning mindset feels very vulnerable. And when you step into a new role, you are going to be learning so much. You are going to be learning about the product. You're going to be learning about the industry, likely. You're learning about how to do the job. it's quite a vulnerable place to be and very exhausting. So you want to be really leaning on probably things that you feel quite comfortable on. How do you sort of step gently across to those so that you're still, if you come from a delivery background, or in this case, I think you said data analysis, then start having a look at how can you bring data into the customer journey, like what data do you have for the customer journey? How can you look into that, and maybe look at other PMs and say, what questions would you ask about say this customer journey that you'd want to have data on? I'd start with something like that. But it is different for everyone, so that's a tricky question to sort of blanket answer. But really go back to your strengths and start from there. How are we doing for time? I'll take another couple. I have background in engineering and marketing, and work in the business development and contracts division. I intend on switching to a law career and was wondering if this career accelerator could make a positive impact for the future aspects. I am going to hold that question, Daniela, for you to take in a minute, because she's got all the information about how the accelerator course helps people's development, and I don't want to do it a disservice by not answering it properly. How do I pick up pace? I have got biology background and only done ecological roles in my entire career. I'm very creative and able to think out the box for most problem-solving situations. Which way is the best way I go to start being a PM and grow successfully? Okay, so if you're not in a PM role at all, then you've got to look at your experiences in terms of sector, industry, narrow that down, and then look for the closest hop that you could do into a product organization. It might be a few steps away, so you might have to go, okay, first of all, I need to look at an organization that has digital product, then I'll take that step, and get in a role that I can do, or it might be an entry level role, and then you'd have to work your way up from there. So you might have to do a bit of sort of weaving your way. I will take one more. What excites you the most about being a PM? So the thing that I love about it is that you just get to do so much. I think it's an absolute privilege of a role. It's a privilege because you not only get to go and talk to customers and do loads of research and find out really cool things, then work with amazing people in your organization to come up with solutions and test them out. And then you see them live in the world where people are actually using your products, or going on the website you created, or using the app, or whatever it might be. So I think that excites me about being a PM. And now I've moved more into leadership, being able to help other people sort of learn how to do that themselves without feeling overwhelmed and pressured by the vast amount of sort of theory and frameworks and knowledge out there, which is all brilliant, and that there's incredible people to learn from, but don't feel like you have to learn it all right now, because you've got a whole career ahead of you, and there's time. That's all from me. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to hand over to Daniela now. Daniela, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Pippa.
Hiya.
Thank you so much for that.
Great. I'll sign off then. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to leave you with Daniela to talk about the accelerator program, and yeah, let me know how you all get on. Add me on LinkedIn, and good luck. Take care.
Thank you, Pippa. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedules to attend the masterclass with Pippa. I'm sure you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Very, very insightful pointers there. I was frantically taking notes. So my name is Danny. I am an enrollment advisor for the King's Product Management Career Accelerator. and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have with regards to the Career Accelerator. But I do just, if you can't stay on for the extra 10 minutes to hear about it, I do encourage you to reach out to us and to any member of my team to book a call and just chat through the Career Accelerator. My team is there to support you with your decision-making process. We really want to take the time to understand what your motivations for product management are, what your specific background in terms of your career and studies are, so that we can help you determine what your career goals are, your unique path, and whether this program, will meet those expectations. So I do encourage you to do that if you're unable to get the answers that you need resolved in this session. Before I get into the questions, I do just briefly want to touch on the Career Accelerator and how it's structured so that you can understand how we are here to support your transitional progression into the product space. The number one thing about the Career Accelerator would be the fact that it is academically backed by King's College London. So that forms the foundations of the program, but it's industry led. So it's got that perfect combination between academic side, but industry focus. It's very career orientated. We want to make sure that the work that you're learning on the program is relevant to a career in product management, as well as the program itself being a very practical program. So we want to ensure that you're able to apply all the skills that you're developing on the program that are required for a role in product management. And we also want to make sure that you're able to showcase those skills with a portfolio of evidence to present to future employers or to your current employer for a job change. And then the third component to the program is that you would work really closely with your career coach. And this is where we're going to find what your transferable skills are, what your purpose are, what your values are. And I know Pippa spoke a lot about what she called the pockets of brilliance. And this is exactly the work you're going to do with your career coach to find out what that unique career path looks like for you, what that career fabric is, as Pippa referred to it, is for your unique journey. And I'm really excited that she brought a lot of that into her talk, because that is such a strong theme throughout the Career Accelerator itself. So yeah, let me get into some questions here. I know I did see one about asking about, after completing the course, do you ensure a job? Although we don't make any guarantees about job placements, it's measuring you successfully, or our learners successfully achieving their career goals, is one of our measurements of success for the program. You'll have a dedicated student success manager, a career coach that are going to be guiding you in these career decisions, your career path, and trying to find your unique career path through the program. Let me see if there are any other questions. How's the UK market for product managers in terms of jobs and salaries? So that is very dependent on what your specific background is and transferable skills that you're coming through the program with, coupled with the product management skills. Again, this is work you're going to do with your career coach to determine what that means for you. But something that's very exciting about product management roles in the UK, it's probably one of the third fastest growing roles in the UK at the moment. And it fits into so many different industries, and there are so many different levels in terms of product management. So again, it depends on what your past experience is, coupled with the skills on the program and the work that you're going to do with your career coach. Let's look for another question. I saw another question earlier about what are the key differentiators for this Career Accelerator and what you get out of the program. Number one is you get a certificate of completion from King's College London. So again, emphasis on that academic foundations and that academic backing, the academic standard of King's College London throughout the program. The second would be you would develop a portfolio of evidence to develop your skills on the program to be able to showcase them to future employers. We have such a strong career focus on this program. It's industry led. There are opportunities to grow your networking abilities. You collaborate with peers on the program, and you also work on a live employer project for the program. So really harnessing all those skills required to be a product manager. And again, the career coaching and the unique career focus of the program. Can you use this course towards a master's degree? That's a great question and a very exciting one. We are in the process of developing a postgraduate certificate with King's College London currently. And step one would be to complete the career accelerator, the product management career accelerator with King's. And step two, which will be available next year, is going to be an additional project that you would add on to this. I do encourage you to reach out to your enrollment advisor or to me directly, and we can chat in a little bit more details about the postgraduate certificate, and we can make sure that we keep you in the loop once all the information has been finalized. Is the course applicable for someone who is a data product manager already in the company and not looking for a career change, but rather skills development? So Anastasia, thank you so much for that question. It would be great if we could chat, if you could book a call with your enrollment advisor or with me, and we can chat a little bit more about why it is that your motivation behind wanting to pursue product management. It would be really great for us to understand what kind of skills you're looking to develop, because this career accelerator absolutely focuses on product management skills development, making sure that you have the practical applications. We cover over the 3 courses or the 3 academic sections of the program. We cover everything from, if you were to create a product from scratch, where do you start? What are your team structures around this? And again, every course it's completed with a project, so emphasis on skill development. So Anastasia, it would be really great to understand which skills you're looking to develop to make sure that they are aligned with this career accelerator. The employer project aspect looks very interesting. How does that work? Oh, great question. So the program itself is 6.5 months in total, with the first 3 weeks being your orientation and onboarding. It's where we spend some time making you familiar with the virtual learning environment and making sure that we understand what your career goals are and your values and your purposes. And then moving on to the academic part of the program, we divide the program into 4 different sections. The final section is going to be that employer project. So leading up to the employer project, we make sure that you have developed the skills, you have the academic, methodologies and concepts, you understand the life cycle of product management in its entirety, and then you'll move on to the employer project. It's a 6-month employer project. We bring in an external employer partner. Previous partners have been DocuSign, SoSure, Skyglass. So some really exciting employer partners with us, and we're continuously growing our employer partner network. They present a real life business challenge to our learners on the program. And then you spend those 6 weeks working in a team, finding product focused solutions to that business challenge. So really gaining an understanding into what it's like to be a product manager, what it's like to work within the team, and then presenting these solutions to the company. And there's a possibility that your team's solutions do get chosen and implemented within the company itself. It's a great way to gain insights into the role, to expose yourself to different industries, and then again, networking opportunities that present themselves during the employer project. We do have some additional resources that break down the employer project, the previous employer project with DocuSign, if you want to get even more details around what that would look like. So please reach out to us if you do want that information. So what level of job, associate, senior, etc., can someone get who has completed this course and has quite a lot of technical experience? So this is a great question, not necessarily one that I can answer outright here. This is exactly why we have the career coaching element to our program. It's really so that we can look into what your previous experience is, what your career goals are, your transferable skills, where you want to align your career in terms of what your next steps are and how to get there. Your career coach is absolutely going to be someone that's going to support you in achieving these career goals as you work through the program and even after the program. And it's, for me, the most exciting part of the program. Everyone's going to have a very unique transferable skills and academic and career background from the program and want to take it into a unique direction. And that's, and people who have graduated from the program couldn't thank their career coaches enough for the support that they've offered them in achieving those career goals. So again, I would encourage you to reach out to your enrollment advisor and find out a little bit more about what your past experiences are, or your technical experience is, so that we can see how we can support you with achieving those career goals. Cool. So if you do have any questions about the cost of the investments of the program, please reach out to your enrollment advisor. We have various payment plans and options that we want to support you in being able to achieve your career goals. And I just want to say thank you again so much for your time and for attending the webinar. And I hope that we can have a conversation in the future about how this program can support those career goals for you. And I hope that you all have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.